Job 18. So for job 18, you're going to be required to make this. And so I've already made this, and you should be able to do that. The thing you might have some trouble with is some of the borders. So if you look on your sheet, you'll see that pretty much this entire section has a big thick border around it, and then inside it has a little bit of thinner borders. So let's do the inside borders first, and then we'll just put a thick border around the outside. So we've highlighted a section we want to put a border around, and then we can go up to our border menu, which is right up here. And I'm just going to choose all borders, a nice thin border for everything, which looks good, except I don't want a thin border on the outside. So I'm going to highlight this, and then I'll just choose a thick box border to go around it. That looks good, and you will notice that student marks, this little cell here, also has a thick border around it, so we'll just click on that again. And now we have a thick border around it. And now you're probably thinking, well, I can't see the top or I can't see the left, and that's a problem that's very easily solved. If we just go up to View, we can just go to our page layout, and then we can see our border in action there. So we'll go back to normal. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll create a nice little border around this. Just make sure I'm on the Home tab. I'll go up here, I'll hit all borders, and then I'll just put a nice thick box border around this as well. Okay, so we are looking good, and now all we need to do is figure out how we're going to get the averages, standard deviation, maximum, and minimum, but we are very good at that. So you can either use the auto sum or your formula. I'm just going to use my formula, so I'll get equals average. I'm going to calculate the average of Kanye West scores, which is 87,000%. So this probably wouldn't happen to you. I just already formatted it to be in percent. Yours would probably show you something like that, general. No problem at all. So then I'm going to fill this. Just going to make sure these are all general. So I'm going to fill this going all the way down. And you might see something like this. This just means the box might not be big enough. So just drag it because it's obviously got a decimal with a whole lot of decimal values after that point. So if you ever see those number signs, it just means your box isn't big enough. Just drag it a little bit bigger and you should have more than enough space. Okay, so good. Now these look great, except they're not really in averages yet. So how do we do that? Well, we have a couple of ways here. Easiest way is to probably just put that percent sign on, but now we have a little bit of an issue because it's 87,000%. Not so good. And even if we kind of mess with the decimals, it doesn't really help us out here because, well, what is a percent? A percent is something multiplied by 100, and then you fix a little percent sign on it. And that's kind of what we did here. We had that 87, we multiplied it by 100 to get it to 8,700, and then we put a percent sign on. So this is really easy to solve if we just go all the way up to our formula bar right up here and just put divide by 100, then it'll give us back to that 87%, which is great. And then I can just fill that all the way down. And now we are looking good. Okay. If on top of that we wanted to add some decimal places, we totally could now. So I'll leave that up to you. I'm just going to add one decimal place to make it nice and easy. Perfect. All right. For standard deviation, we have to go equals, and then the formula for standard deviation is standard dev. We'll take the standard deviation of those scores. Perfect. And we will just fill that all the way down. And this looks pretty ugly, so let's clean up the decimal places. Let's bring it all the way down to 2 decimal places. Actually, we'll keep it consistent with 1 decimal place. Okay. So we have that. We're looking good here. And then we'll just calculate the average for all of these. So we have average here. And this looks good, except we're eventually going to want this to be in percent. So why don't we just go ahead and do that now. We'll hit our percent, but remember, if we're at percent, probably going to have to divide this number by 100, and then we can just fill it all the way over there. Okay. Looks good. And then we'll take our maximum and our minimum. Okay, if we want our overall average, I'm going to take my average of this, and we find that it's 81%. If I wanted my maximum, I could do the exact same thing here. I'll just carry my maximum over, carry my minimum over, and now you're looking, okay, well, why does this show up as 0.99? And it's because we haven't turned it into a percent. Remember, when you turn it into percent, multiply 100, and then you fix that percent sign in the back. So, yep, hit percent button there, and we have 67%. And then we'll just take our average of our standard deviation, just bring that across, and bring that across. And these are definitely not percentages, so we don't need them to be percentages. Let's just go up, choose general, and then we'll bring it back down to 1 decimal place. And now that is all done. So that was quite a bit of work. So it looks exactly like it should here, and now we need to make a little bit of a graph going on here for us. So let's take a look at what the actual expectations are of this. Let me just pull up the sheet so we know what we're messing with. All right. So we need a graph that has student marks, and then we have to have mark percentage on the left, students on the bottom, and then test 1, test 2, test 3. So we want to calculate the marks using their scores from test 1, test 2, test 3. So these are going to be our data points. Let's go up to insert. We highlight the things that we need. Insert, that was a bar graph, so we'll pick a bar graph. And we have that. That's perfect, except we have series 1, series 2, series 3 on the bottom. That's probably not so good. And then instead of people, we also have this, which isn't so good. But there's a quick fix to both of those problems. So first, we'll start off by putting our people in here. So if we click on that, go to right click, and we'll choose select data. That's going to allow us to choose whatever we need to choose here. So we're dealing with our axis labels. So we're just going to hit this little button over here, and then we can just drag and highlight the ones that we actually want to put on our graph. Just go back here, click that box, and then we will hit OK, and perfect. Now we are looking good. OK, we want this to say test 1, test 2, and test 3. So we could go and we could select data for that. We could just rename these things if we wanted to. Test 1, test 2, or test 3. Or if I wanted to, I could have done the exact same thing. Just wanted to show you both ways. Okay, so we have that looking good, and now we just want to add our horizontal and vertical bars. Well, our horizontal bar, we're going to have a primary horizontal, and this will be our student. And then we're going to add a vertical, and that's going to be our mark, %. Okay, looks good. Let's see what else we do. And you'll notice something else that you should definitely pay attention to. Look, our student marks, they obviously never go above 100, but if you look at our graph, it goes all the way up to 120, which is a little bit of a problem for us. So we're going to click on that. We're going to click on that. We're going to right click, and then we can do a little bit of our formatting. So let's click on Format Our Axis. So here we have our bounds. It says it starts at 0. Our maximum is 120. Let's shuffle that all the way down to 100, and now we're looking a little bit better. Okay. Our chart title, I believe, is Student Marks. Looks good. And that looks great. It looks pretty much exactly like that. Some colors might be different, but you can go ahead and change those. Okay. Looks good to me. So we're done with it. We can, even if we want to, right click. We can hit Move Chart, and we can make it a new sheet, and we'll call it Student Marks, and watch what happens here. So we actually create a new little tab here just for our chart to make it nice and easy for us to look at. Okay, the next thing we are going to do is the level 4 challenge. So we're going to just do it based on the overall student averages, which is column E here for us. Okay, So let's highlight this, and we can actually even highlight this to make it even easier for us. So we'll go to Insert, another bar graph, and we have our averages. So let's change the title of that. Let's make it Student Averages. And now we can do the exact same thing. We can right click, select data, we can pick our people. Great. And we'll set our upper bounds again. We don't want it to be at 1.2. We definitely want it to be at 1, which is the same thing as 100. And then we can go ahead and add our titles. So we can put an axis title on the bottom, which will be our student. Here we'll have it be our mark. And let's make sure what we got here. Yep, this is looking good, looking good, looking good. But we do need these things here, which is our data labels. So let's go ahead and figure out how to do that. So if we click on this and we go up to chart design, we're going to add an element. And here we're going to go to our data labels. And we can really put these things anywhere we'd like. I'm just going to put them maybe as a callout. Yeah, callout gives you this nice little thing, almost like the bar is speaking to you. It's not very formal, and truly you probably wouldn't put it in a professional report, but this is what this job is asking for here. So I moved that title over just because it's a little bit tough to read there, and we could bold it, we could underline it, we could do whatever we wanted to do. But this is looking good right now. So to make it easy, why don't we move this so we have a little bit more room to work at, and I'll call this max marks. Okay, so we're looking good here. Now the only thing we need to do is we need to put a picture in here, and we can do that quite easily. We just need to pull up any picture you want off Google. So I am already ready with this guy here. I'm going to just save this image as that. Perfect. And then I'll go over to here. So I'm going to just click on this area here. If we right click, we'll pull up this format chart area. And now I can do pretty much whatever I'd like. So I can go up to fill, and then if I go to my picture or texture fill, I'm actually going to take a picture, and to make it nice and easy, if you copy this image instead of saving it, it might even be easier for you because you can insert it directly from your clipboard. So if I click on clipboard, oh damn, that looks good. And then we have our dog friend in there for us. Now you might notice that some of the font doesn't show up, so you might need to change that. That's okay, we can change that to white, and now we see our nice little student averages there. And that is job 18, a difficult job, but if you got it done, good work.